Long
Three,
day.
two,
I'm very
one.
tired, man.
Welcome everyone to Ladder Daily Digest, where we invade Tim's living room virtually. Thank you, Tim, for allowing us to, but save some of that vodka for us. Use your room and talk about
It
some
was
things.
vodka.
We're just going to talk stuff, right?
I just have to say, it is a bold move to fill a water bottle with vodka and drink it with no looks on your face whatsoever, as if it was just water. That is just wild.
Yeah. We'll see if he stays
That's the
in
only way
frame
to go.
later.
You know, somebody once told me that vodka had no smell. So if they put the vodka in the water bottle, no one would ever know.
It's
I'm here
true.
to
It
tell you
doesn't
it
have
had
to.
a
Baby,
smell,
could you
guys.
give me a vodka?
What? You've
Grab me
been
the
able? I've
vodka,
never been
please.
able to smell it.
I can smell
Which
it. I'm just here to
which
tell you.
Wh-
Smells
which
like shoe polish.
which one? Grey Goose or Smirnoff or? Uh,
You know, to tell you the truth, I don't remember which one it was. But, you know, I probably should ask my friend's permission before I start telling her secrets on YouTube.
okay. All right.
Suffice it to say, I have had some wild times with some wild people.
You're a wild and crazy kind of gal.
Yeah, I guess so. I just,
I'm
you know, I
very-
left Mormonism because I wanted to sin. So
Yeah. I have a very
And-
similar story. I've had some mild times with some mild friends.
that sounds much cooler.
That's a mild story, Gene.
Yeah. It's
Mildly
unbelievable.
speaking.
You're mild and crazy. You're a mild
I'm
and
a
crazy
mild
guy.
and crazy guy.
I just have to mention, since somebody is talking about Jello shots, I went to a lake in Texas just a couple of months ago. And on the sign where you pay to get into the lake were all of the rules, typical things that you would expect. But there was a specific rule for no Jello shots. And I just want to know, was it proactive or was it reactive? Put a 1 in the comments if you think it was proactive. Put a 2 if you think it was reactive.
All those opposed by the same sign.
Raise the left hand to the square.
So they specifically mentioned Jello shots.
Yes, they specifically
bring
said no
Bottles
Jello.
of whatever you want, but no Jello shots.
Yeah, the consensus in the chat is that was a reactive decision. If we have a little break in coverage, I'll go and retrieve. They gave us a little mesh garbage bag that kind of looks like a potato sack, and it had the rules on the outside. So I'll have to go get it and show it to you guys.
Oh wow.
I was just saying to Jean, I hope Megan shows us her mesh garbage bag. Because, you know, you just don't see enough of those around anymore.
That's so true. I used to play a game with my students sometimes. See if you can guess what is in my purse. And I always had stuff in there that nobody was ever going to guess. And I don't really have a very big purse, but sometimes random stuff ends up in there because, you know, as a mom of 6, that's what happens.
Well, did you ever try it with the mesh garbage bag?
I never
See if
did.
they
No,
could guess what was in there?
I never did.
Well, I think
Welcome,
Jules is
Jules.
about to appear.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey
Good.
Jules.
Hey, Miss Jules.
Hey, Randy.
How the heck are you?
Doing great.
When's your big move?
Last day of work is September 10th. I leave on the 11th.
What a day to leave.
Yeah.
Megan might be able to
did
drive
I not-
out there to help you pack.
Yeah, why not?
Can we get that? Can we
Closest.
get that arranged, Megan?
Sure. Happy to help.
What did I not get the memo, Jules? Where are you moving to?
I'm going to Chula Vista out in California. And
It's near San
from
Diego.
Albuquerque. It is the
Chula.
second largest city in San Diego. Chulawana is what it's known as. If you're familiar with the area.
Chulawana.
Chula Vista.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that mean cute view?
Kiki,
Yes, it does. Very well said. It does mean cute view.
Kiki, I want to know what your fun goodies are.
So, for those who don't know, Kiki is Kirsten, who was on my channel last night. We did a little family home evening, and we're going to make it a weekly thing. It's going to be so fun. I'm excited.
Shut up. That's who Kiki is?
Yep.
Because I watched your family home evening. It was very cute.
It was
Glad you
very
liked it.
interesting. It was fun to watch.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're going to be taking lessons out of the old cartoon manual for children, and we are going to be talking about some of those weird primary songs that we were forced to sing, and yeah, unpacking our family home evening trauma.
See, but your generation got all the fun ones that mine
Mhm.
didn't. See,
Were
when
they
they
really
changed
fun?
from the green book to the orange book.
Tim's generation was just like Native American drum beats.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
As
Yes.
they came out of the primordial ooze, making noises.
Right. Yes.
Sup, Trevor?
Yes.
Hey, Trevor.
Hey, Trevor.
So I remember the Orange Book. The Orange Book was the old book to me, but it had a little supplement, that came with it. And I liked the supplements because they were like the new songs. And then they came out with the blue book that was, the hardcover blue book. And
Wow.
yeah, I was a primary chorister for a little while, but my very favorite calling in the church was primary pianist. And I have to be
Well-
careful to pronounce that correctly because I just showed up and played a few songs and went home. I loved it.
I have a little bone to pick with you, Megan, and with
Yes.
Kirsten.
Okay.
You guys were making light of Heavenly Father, are you really there? I love that song. That's one
I
of my
did
favorite
too.
songs. And I can't sing it with one of my kids without crying. Well, that was back when they were little. Now they
Yeah.
would just laugh at me.
I've never
But,
heard that song.
That's one of the songs I would kind of sing like a lounge singer. I would give it a little.
Father, are
little
you really there?
And sit on the piano.
Yeah.
I used to absolutely love to sing a lot of the primary songs heavy metal style, but my kids didn't really appreciate that very much. I'm not sure why. But Randy, what we were talking about is the fact that there were a lot of Mormon composers. I seem to remember Janice Cap Perry being the master of taking one melody and another melody and then having them mash up. She was the master of the mashup before mashups were a thing.
Wow.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
that's
what
really
a child's
cool.
prayer was.
Well, I mashed up a couple of songs myself. I Wonder When He Comes Again, and I Walked Today Where Jesus Walked, and it fit perfect. And I was really impressed with myself.
Well,
But I
would
could
love
only
to hear
think
that.
about it. I'm not talented enough to actually play it.
Well, send it
Well.
on over, Randy, and I'll do a cover for you.
So Tim, do you want to answer the question on the board? Assuming Spinster's still there.
What?
Hey, Spinster, good to see you. He's wondering if we can help him figure out the golden plates. Are they lost? And do people actually believe it?
Well, number one, they never existed.
Number two, they're chipped and they're put away in an attic somewhere because they can't
Yeah.
use them for dinnerware anymore.
No,
Actually-
don't you
And number
guys know
three-
anything? They're in a government warehouse in a wooden box with a stencil on the side.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I mean,
Top
Okay.
secret.
Oh,
must have been the
They're
They're in
warehouse
a
I
bank
went to.
they're in a bank in the middle of Beverly Hills in someone else's name. And for those of you who don't recognize it, that's a song. All the Gold in California.
But yes, the real thing is if there were any plates whatsoever, they were probably tin plates from the barrel making, or somebody said like printer's plates, but I'm
Like
not sure they had the
shingles.
same printer plate technology back then. I thought they had movable type, and you wouldn't want to deal
no,
with
they
printers.
they had printer plates back then.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
But they're most likely shingle, tin
Tim
shingle.
ought to know. He was there.
I was there.
Well,
He's the
welcome
one that
back,
put him
Mark.
in
Well,
the
see, because
warehouse.
remember, with the woodcuts for the Book of Abraham are done on a
Hey,
tin
thanks,
plate.
Randy. I'm hearing double. I don't know what's going on, but to tag in on the Book of Mormon thing, I think the old the cut on Joseph Smith's thumb is supposedly evidence that there were rings that he made with the 10 plates.
Right,
And
from
I
Dan
think
Vogel.
that's, for me personally, that's like the most logical thing, you know.
Was
Yeah,
dislocated thumb.
Yeah,
That cut them.
dislocated.
Yeah, dislocated.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, when he came back with the
Well,
plates,
they
he had them reset his thumb, and he blamed it on the ruffians. But people think it was he hurt himself finishing the plates.
I blamed so many things on the ruffians. My wife doesn't believe me anymore.
Well, he probably made them in that cave, the miners' cave that they dug out recently. That was
Down the
No.
miners' caves only allowed people 17 years and younger. I'm just teasing.
no.
Well, I just
I-
assumed that they were telling the
but
truth.
Joseph
And
liked
the
it.
plates are safe with Moroni in heaven, along with the sword of Laban and the breastplate and the other seer stones that we don't know about.
Well, according to my primary teacher, we do have the plates. The first presidency is keeping them until we're
They're in
ready
the-
to see them.
They're in the granite
Yeah.
vault.
Yeah.
You know what?
that-
I just
Yeah.
remembered. I saw them. They're actually in the visitors center of the Carthage jail.
Oh, they're in every visitor's
They're in a
center.
little. Wait, what, Tim? Oh, why you always have to ruin it for me? I thought I
They're
saw the
in
real ones.
or are they the ones John DeLynn has?
Oh, that's a good question.
RFM.
I also
Or
saw
You
a
know-
set at the Sunstone conference sitting on a table where you open them up and inside is a flask. So there's that
Oh,
little.
I like that.
That's
If-
Mark.
If we were
the
on
artist.
paranormal caught on camera,
I'm getting a delay. I'm hearing
and one of us was a ghost, Mark would be the ghost.
Hi, Mark.
You've got that ghosty look to you.
So just to introduce Mark, Randy and I interviewed Mark today, and the show's coming out tomorrow if I get my editing hat on, maybe the next day. And then, but Mark has an interesting story. And, since Mark's the newbie in the crowd, and I invited him to come and tell some things that he was sorry for what he said when he was Mormon. Do you want to start off, Mark? But make sure you speak clearly into your mic.
I'm going to pop out and pop back in.
Okay, see if that works. See if it
Yeah,
makes it
I'm
better.
getting a delay. So
I think I like this answer the best. Tom Cruise stole them in Mission Impossible style in the name of L. Ron Hubbard. Or was it Nicolas Cage
From what is
with the
it?
Constitution?
Yeah.
He's got them in a little
Right.
roll. Keeps on his.
What's the
Yeah. The government keeps on making these docudramas about the hidden plates that they're always probably in the room around the corner or underneath some other treasure.
You know, y'all took it very lightly when I said Mark looked like a ghost. I see ghosts, and he was a ghost. Did you not see how you could kind of see through him?
I
You're
mean,
not
I
nervous
wasn't
about
going to
that? No
say
one cares?
anything. I was going to leave it to you, Randy. I'm glad you said something.
I thought it was an illusion, Randy, because you're such a good illusionist.
No, you see
Maybe
how he
Mark
just
needs
popped
the
out?
link again.
That's what ghosts do.
That way you don't have to scroll up so much.
I want to get a set of golden plates that inside you keep your Book of Mormon in there. Mormons buy that, right? Fake set of plates that's a Book of Mormon holder.
Oh, yeah. I
Right.
used to love it when they made the Book of Mormons that had the gold cover on the outside. That was
Yes.
my favorite one.
Yeah, those are cool.
I
And I
saw
realized
one
it was
for
all
sale on
fake.
eBay for like $1,000.
For that old book, they made like thousands of them.
Yeah, but people don't know that.
No. Okay.
Okay, there's Mark. All right, Mark, you ready to go?
yeah, there's still a delay, but I think I can somehow figure this out. Yeah.
Can you turn up
Ron-
your volume?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
That's better.
we hear you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So
Yeah.
Ron Jorgensen, as a guest, showed us. Well, he didn't show us, but he told us about a seer stone that someone had 3D printed for him, and it's got a little hole in it. And if you look in that hole through that seer stone, it says "moron" on it. And I thought that was so cool. He says it's a replica of Joseph's stone. So my son says he'll print them up if I get the
Oh.
whatever it is that they look at.
Hey,
You
I
can
want
make a
one.
merch store.
Yeah, we should make a merch store and sell them.
Lila, I
No
did not
kidding.
know this. Lila's dad designed the gold cover.
Oh
Hartman
my
Wexler
goodness,
Jr.
Lila. Hi,
That's cool.
Lila.
Dang.
What?
Very
That's
cool.
amazing.
That's cool.
I just
Wow.
thought with Sears company going out of business, why aren't they selling Sears stones? You know, a little
Sears.
stone that says Sears on it.
Plus, Sears has the good, the better, and the best version of it.
Yeah. It's like
Little
their
did
pet
you
rock.
know, you
You
could get
print
one
money.
in the Sears catalog.
Yeah, those Sears stones would be super
Yeah.
popular.
My dad worked for Sears.
Wow.
Yeah.
The only
He
the
opened
only
one-
good I got out of this Sears catalog was the lingerie section when I was
Exactly.
I thought you
Exactly.
were
My
going to say
friends
use
and
as
I-
toilet paper.
Exactly.
That was the
a kid. My
pre-internet
friends and I
jackpot.
couldn't wait.
Okay,
Well,
we'll let
sometimes
Mark
they're a little shit.
say something he said that he regrets when he used to be a Mormon.
No, he's muted.
I tell you what I regret.
There we go.
Probably the singlest thing, the biggest thing I regret is when I came home from my mission, I got challenged by a guy at work, and he hammered me, and the biggest regret is he gave me the book, The Godmaker. Not just what I said, but what I wrote. So I just like garlic fruits. You just get me done. So I wrote with a red pen and gave it back to him. I regret that. Yes. Anti-Mormon lies that were more true than any Well, and Sunday school
we
lesson
talked
manual.
earlier, I think anyone who's I don't regret serving. I do regret spreading lies.
Yeah.
Didn't know I
Yeah.
was.
I told some whoppers too, Mark. Because
You told some
what
whoppers?
I feel bad, but you know what I used to tell all the time was, where it says man is as God once was, God, or as man is, God once was, as God is, man may become. I never knew where exactly that was on my mission. So I always convinced them that it was in the Bible. I'd say, and this worked every time. I'd say, as you probably have read in the Bible, it says, and
Oh,
I would
wow.
quote that, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that." Yeah, right. They'd never heard it because it wasn't in the Bible.
That's like about the sword fight between Joseph Smith and friggin'
So I'm always defending. So, the I always think about, and for members today, a good question to put back is, why is it so important that it must be true? I mean, why is it so important? What is it? Why do you have to stand up and, oh, it's true. You can't tell me it's not true. Right. And that's what happens with TBMs. There's just something there that it has to be true, and maybe it's a psyche thing. But at the end of the day, for all of us who believe, I think that's the cognitive piece that we just go, hey, wait a minute, it doesn't have to.
Yep.
Mark, it kind of seems like you're saying that it's not true.
It has to be true. No way it's not true.
Hold on.
It's
hold
the
on.
only true church on the face of the earth.
Yes. Well, yeah, and I think it goes to this whole idea that we have sucker that is this thing
we hold on to it, right? When we're condemned for like, got to hold on to this thing. It's got to be true. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's like,
Well, you know, it's only the things that aren't real
why,
that
and I think it's part of the way the church lies to you and
right. We don't have to wake up every morning and say, I know 2 + 2 is 4. I know I bear my testimony that there's gravity. Right. You don't have to. Those things they exist. Right. It's only the things that nobody else agrees with you that you bear your testimony of.
Yeah.
So Barbara Brown says Xenu was the big bad guy who brought people to Earth, put them into volcanoes, and blew them up. The result was the release of body thetans, stick like
body thetans, thetans.
Nice.
So Spinster has another really good question. I would love to hear from everybody your answer. He says, I live less than 1 mile from an LDS temple. They're great neighbors and have absolutely beautiful grounds. It has numerous steps that I want to use for exercise. Would this offend my LDS neighbors?
We have these ones there.
Wear a white jogging outfit.
There you go. That's the solution we were looking for. Ding, ding, ding.
It's a green apron.
Wear a green apron and you'll be just fine.
It looks like a
or
fig leaf.
wear a sandwich sign that says, "Why am I here? What's my purpose in life?"
Yeah, no,
And
because then they would
missionaries
just, they'd try to convert you.
Sicked on you.
No, to be perfectly honest, Spinster, probably people would, there probably are people who would be offended, but they're the same kind of people who are offended by everything. So do you really care if you're offending those kind of people? And secondly, I will also issue this caution to you. The more time that you spend on Mormon property, the statistically more likely you are to be accosted by the missionaries.
Right.
And taught the gospel against your will. So,
And charge 10% of your life's earnings
that's right.
for the privilege of walking on those steps slower.
See,
it hurts my feelings.
Tell us, Randy.
For many years, there was no gate or fence in front of the Los Angeles temple, and people could walk up and down those stairs anytime, both sides, right? Then the rumor was that Bill Cosby and a bunch of people were going to come and protest in front of the LA temple. That was 67, 68. The next week, the fence that is around the temple appeared.
So that anti-Bill Cosby prophecy was true.
It was true.
That's Bill Cosby.
So they built,
not to be confused with Bing Crosby.
So I mean, it was fine until that happened.
Well, wouldn't Bill Cosby?
Oh,
go ahead, Tim.
Go ahead. What?
I was going to say, wouldn't he be fitting in the church now, with what some of the cases we saw lately?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't doing it with children. He was doing it with adults.
Was he protesting?
Right, so he wouldn't fit in Mormonism because his victims were way too old.
That's right.
Megan, one of our listeners asked, what's with the green apron thing? Do you happen to be wearing yours right now?
I'm not wearing mine right now because I burned it. But yeah,
it's part of the temple. It's part of the temple getup, the clothing, the cultish, if I may be so bold.
Just Google Mormon temple clothing.
I like to call it Satan's apron because Satan is the one who commands everyone to put on their green aprons.
That's right.
So you're literally following Satan when you put the green apron on. That's all I have to say about that.
And this is your 10% card.
Oh, there you go.
Randy, you were about to tell us what offended you, and I was waiting with bated breath to hear.
What hurts my feelings is that I told so many Black people about the fact that they were cursed, that they bore the mark of Cain, and that they were fence sitters. And to think that I actually said this out loud, I can't believe that I ever even entertained that to be the truth. It's so ridiculous, and it makes me disgusted that I told. How many people did I tell that to?
You just tell strangers, like, "Hey, black dude, you're cursed. I can help you."
I held up signs. You're all cursed.
Go to the NAACP.
Did you really tell people that, Randy?
Yes, I did, Tim. That's what I was taught. Is that they would be white and handsome one day.
On your mission, or even after that?
No, on my mission, because we had a number of Africans that were in Spain because they're neighbors, and on a clear day we could actually see Africa from the coast of Spain, and we had Africans there, and we were obligated to teach that principle. And I'm embarrassed. I mean, if I could go back seriously and find everyone I explained that to and say, I was on drugs when I said that, I'm sorry, it's not true.
Did anybody join after that talk? With like, I'm going to join.
Kind of pisses me off.
Curse gone. The curse. I got to join that church.
Yeah.
So, just curious. Michael Malloy's show is here. I know President Nelson is a good man. Have you met President Nelson? I'm just very curious about this, and what about President Nelson leads you to believe that he is a good man? Very curious.
Is he a good man, and is he an honest man?
Someone doesn't have their echo cancellation checked.
Ask him why the church protects pedophiles.
Can you hear someone twice, Mark?
Yeah, I'm hearing multiple people. And I just checked my echo cancellation, and that's what they...
I don't even know what that is.
Well, now you've placed a doubt in my mind.
So where you see your name and below, there should be dots or something you can check.
A setting, and if you click on the setting, and there's an audio button.
How about that? No.
Maybe that helped.
Can you hear him? And that
Me.
So, Randy, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and I think a lot of us, the point of this show is that we all said things when we were true believing Mormons because we were believing, and.
Right.
Not all of the things that we said were probably compassionate or helpful or kind or even true.
Right? If there was just a hint of truth to it.
When Prop 8 was going down in California, I had to go and hand out signs. I remember it's not so much your speech, but also your actions. So, and the church is telling us to go out and put up signs on people's lawns.
Yeah.
Which is horrible, No.
I think for me, it's kind of like you're saying, Jules, like it wasn't just our words, but our actions. And for me personally, too, it was a lot for me, the things I didn't say, that I wish that I could go back to some of those situations and speak up instead of just being complicit.
Yeah. But what's weird is I never said to anyone that being gay was a sin. Although on my mission, of course, they told us that, well, you can be gay, but you just can't act on it. That's the stupidest thing ever.
You can be gay, you just can't act gay.
Yeah. I could never wrap my head around that if there's love between two people, why the hell does it have to be a man and a woman?
Well, I'm following that principle too now. I am Mormon, but I'm just not acting like one.
Yeah.
Well, and you love me, Gene, right?
Is it okay if you're just gay for pay? There's no love in it. Is that still okay?
To each their own.
I'm just asking for a friend, you know.
For a friend, yeah.
Nelson is over 100 years old, the oldest LDS prophet ever.
What a
Wow.
coincidence. Modern medicine.
So
Just a
what?
coincidence.
Who cares?
So as long as we were on the topic of Prop 8, do you mind if I share my screen for a moment?
Sure.
Please do.
Do I mind?
Share that
No.
screen.
Let's see if it will come up. Oh, there it is.
Great show before this.
First, I want to change the question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's rewind.
The robot
I'll just
man.
interject here. This guy's creepy.
So this is Elder Bednar, and he is slated to run the church at some point. But back in 2016,
That's
was-
of Susan. Come
yes, this is Susan's husband. I'm so
on.
sorry.
Of Susan.
Susan plus one.
Right, Susan's
No.
plus one, who's slated to run the church at some point. But back in 2016, he was giving a devotional, and I don't remember exactly where it was, but they had a Spanish translator, and the question was, how can homosexual members of the church live and remain steadfast in the gospel? Which doesn't sound at all like a canned question. Kidding, it's totally canned.
First, I want to change the question.
Of course
There
you
are
do.
no homosexual members of the church. We are not defined by sexual attraction. We are not defined by sexual behavior. We are sons and daughters of God. And all of us have different challenges in the flesh.
We are
Well-
defined by gender, though. Gender defines us, though.
There are no
Well, there you go.
homosexual members of the church. There you have it.
There it is. That's the answer right there. We don't even have to worry about it as members of the church because there are no homosexuals in there.
They don't
The
even
17
need to make rules.
No more
They
homosexuals.
don't exist.
Yeah, that kind of thinking is just so harmful, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm new here with the group, and that's, you know, the church and its ideology has just destroyed my family. I have a new one, so I'm grateful, but my word, it is just so, you know, we were having this conversation earlier today. It's like it's just the opposite of what it does, what it claims to do. And that's what's happening here with this whole gay thing. I mean, and frankly, when I departed, that was right around the time when they were doing the, you know, no more blessings, you know, et cetera. And the church came out with that policy. And
Yeah, 2015.
I was like, man, this is just insane. I mean, you guys were not following. If there is an example in Christ, you folks are not following it. You know, it's yeah, you know, and that's my kind of bane with my whole experience. I was, just so y'all know, I was knee deep, like way knee deep. I was a veil worker in the Salt Lake Temple in college. I was gospel doctrine teacher so many times I can't even count. I was an institute instructor. I was a high priest group leader twice. I was an elders quorum president twice. I served a mission. I graduated from the institute program. I mean, I was like just knee deep in all this, and I thought I was Mr. I'm stalwart brother Stoddard, you know. And you know, in the end, when you realize how invasive the ideology is and how harmful it is to relationships, it really, I think that's where what y'all are doing and what John DeLynn and many, many others are doing. I think that's why what you're doing is so important, because it has to be called out. It just, in my view, it has to be. Because if we don't, more folks just get hurt. I mean, I likely will never have a normal relationship with any of my biological children. You know, and that is so hurtful. And you know, and at the end of the day, I'm preaching to the choir. The church doesn't care. They don't care. I mean, I always thought, well, maybe I'll write a letter. You know, no, it's not going to do me any good. It's not going to do them any good. They don't care. They're just going to continue marching, you know, in their, you know, trying to conquer the Christian, whatever little corner that they're trying to conquer. But, you know, I think the good news is, from what I can sense anyway, is attendance is down, wards are being combined. People are getting the word. So, anyway.
Blessed be the fruit. That's what I've got to say.
Yeah. Well,
Tim, that's your cue. You're muted.
Tim's coming out.
Yeah, I
Thank
am.
you, Mark, for sharing
May
that.
the Lord open.
That was nice, Mark.
Yes.
Your kids might leave someday. Hold that hope.
Well, for me, I had a father-in-law my ex-father-in-law still lives 500 yards down the street from me. My ex-wife lives a mile away. It's kind of insane. And I sued my ex-father-in-law for meddling in my divorce. My divorce, I still have an active issue with it now, 10 years later.
Wow.
And so it's something that did not have to be how it turned out. If he would have stayed out, and I was talking to Gene about this earlier today, in my case, when we look at this in the Mormon lens, this gentleman did just the opposite of what the church teaches the patriarch of the family to be. He decided that I was the bad guy, and that was it. When in fact, and I shared a little bit with Gene, I'm not going to repeat it, but it was just the opposite, and he had the power. This is what frustrates me about my situation with Mormonism and its impact in my life and in my divorce. He had the power at any time to pull himself out and to tell his daughter just to cooperate and get this thing done. But he didn't do that. He did just the opposite. And in the end, when I sued him, I lost, but I could have appealed. I had legal grounds. I think I could have won on appeal, but my lawyer turned to me and said, "Look, he's 80. You're going to get in front of a jury, and they're going to be sympathetic towards him, and you're just not going to. It's not worth it at this point." And so, and in fact, the irony here is he drives by my house every day, and my wife, he stares at my wife. And the funny thing was that just the other day, my wife has a high school friend that's here, and I've mowed my lawn enough, so my wife's out there now, and she's enjoying it and doing wonderful. Oh my word, she's just killing it, planting and creating stuff. Well, this gentleman, her high school friend that's been helping her, he's out there with her, and my father-in-law pulls up, and he's like, "Well, what's going on? I don't see more." This is no kidding. Within 10 minutes, my ex-wife comes from the opposite direction. And so when I met this gentleman, I said, "Hey, it's neat that you're high school friends and you're here in the same town many years later." And I said, "You helping her, it was all worth it just for that one time." My father-in-law freaked out, and he's probably thinking in his mind, "Oh, is that her new husband?" Because I wasn't out there. He didn't see me, and so yeah. So in my case, that's where I think, and my mother, and Gene's going to have me on again. We'll talk more, but my mother was excommunicated in the 80s.
Wow.
And none of us kids know why. I was 16 at the time. I was inactive. I'm a Party Animal High School kid, and shared that with Gene. But none of us kids to this day know why. They guarded that.
I bet it because she was a feminist.
I think it was actually. She was extremely outspoken, and she would let the brethren know. And my mother was very intense. So if you mess with her, fire was coming your way. Both barrels, you're going to get it. And she would not let up. She was intense. And I think some brethren took offense. And she was you talked about being the primary chorister. My mother was the ward chorister for years, for more than a decade. She had a beautiful voice. She loved doing it, even though she questioned the church. She was a convert. And she got criticized at a few points by the brethren for the way she was doing her calling. And
wow,
that
correctly?
That did not sit well with her. And my mother, interestingly, during this whole process, even when we were youth, we were, very, very active, and it was Sundays were hell. She'd get all us 5 kids ready. I mean, it was crazy. But she was always the devil's advocate, and she was always asking questions, and she was teaching us children to question, to always be critical. And later, and this is my kind of profound mantra with this, is my mother, she resigned in 1995. And she then, after that, up until the time I resigned in 2016, she would keep telling me, Mark, when are you going to take your power back? And she would say that to me over and over and over again. And at first I didn't get it. I do now. I think we all do. And
Yeah.
and it's just so profound. My mother loved me so much. And
Mark, I can see that you regret not saying, "What do you mean, Mom?" That would have saved you so much.
Yeah.
So much timing.
Well, what I regret, if we're being on topic here with the theme of the night, I mean, I obviously regret a lot of things I said as a missionary. And I regret now, knowing what I know, being so robust in my defense of the church, and being so suckered and so, that's why I was talking about earlier, this whole idea of why does it have to be right? Why does it have to be true? Why is it so important that it must be true? And for some reason, I was just so hooked and so stubborn that, I regret all that. I mean, just having to, that guy, in my case, this gentleman, when I came home from my mission, now that I look back on it, that was my opportunity right there to leave. If I would have had enough of an open mind, because he actually gave me an original edition, a copy of the original edition of the Book of Mormon. I don't know. I've lost it since then.
Photocopy?
Yeah. So you can get, they're out there. You can get, and he found it somehow, but you can get a reprint of the original Book of Mormon.
Interesting.
And that was important to him because he wanted to show me, hey, look, bud, this is not the most perfect book on earth.
That's the approved version. The printer's manuscript was.
Yeah, exactly.
How's it going?
Exactly.
Folky type.
So, and at the time, I regret being so. I mean, he gave me the book, The God Makers, and I read it, but I read it like, oh, I'm coming for you, dude. You ain't gonna convince me that this ain't true. And I did. Like I said earlier, I wrote my testimony in red ink in the back of the book, and I went and I was like scripture hunting, and I would defend each scripture, and I put little notes in there, and I give it back. But in the end, I actually went to church with him. So I wanted him to know that I respected him enough that I wasn't so torn it and so how would I say bigoted? I wasn't bigoted that I wouldn't attend church with him. Yeah, because one of the things, I went to Indiana on my mission in the 80s.
Mark, let's let Jules. Jules, have you said what you regret saying?
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions coming
in. Well, me, I was one of the biggest things I regret saying that the church was true, especially as a convert, and being convinced, that this, was something new. And first of all, going to your first sacrament meeting being a testimony meeting first, that's something you heard over and over and just it's so recorded. But then eventually get into that mindset that, after hearing it so many times and being programmed to hear that everything that you're being taught is true. It was just, mind blowing that I actually got to that point where I was saying that it was true, and teaching youth, and like I said earlier, also the actions that we showed too, against, the, LGBTQ A plus issues, and then eventually coming out, it was that was horrible, because we helped in the campaign with Prop 8 in California. So that was one of my biggest things.
Absolutely.
All right. Kinder Kim's joined us too now. I mean, Rio's joined us. Indeed. Hey, it's pretty Kim's.
I'm like, I don't see Kinder Kim. Hey,
We
Rio,
got Call Me
we're-
Kim as well.
It's the
Yeah.
Kim show again.
Okay.
Kim
Hi,
Curry.
Kim. Hi, Rio.
I think for me, when I was, ever since I saw this thumbnail, it's been on my brain all day going, I don't
Good.
really regret anything, but I'm like, oh, wait a minute. What do I regret saying? And there's relationships and friendships that are gone, and they tried to reach me multiple times in multiple ways about the falsehoods or about the damage my family was doing to me. And I kept, I stayed married to my second husband after he molested my daughter. They never saw each other ever again, but it was because of my patriarchal blessing. And the biggest phrase I said is, you just don't understand. You just don't understand. And that's my regret, that they understood and I didn't until now. And so I regret every time I said, you just don't understand, the whole bigger purpose of all of this. So that's my
That's right.
regret.
And
Yeah,
that's
Kim.
true. They didn't
Wow.
understand.
Yeah, they did.
Kim,
But oh
I just
no.
I so identify with that, and I'm so sorry because I stayed in my marriage way, way longer than I should have because I was waiting for some cosmic sign from God to tell me that it was okay to leave. And I kept feeling like I should probably stay. I should probably try to work it out. And man, I think my biggest regret about Mormonism is the time that I wasted not living my life.
Yeah.
For me, it's the reason I'm on disability. After when everything happened along with COVID in 2020, my brain, the outside world was just as evil as I was taught it was. Friends changed when COVID happened, and all the political stuff. I sat and watched it in real life, real time. And I didn't talk to people or leave my house for a year and a half. I'm one of these vivacious
Wow.
people, and I just
Wow.
shut myself off. And now, it's 5 years later, and I'm going to come back with a vengeance on the world, but not in a bad way. It's finding that authentic self and not being afraid anymore to
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm 60, but I'm still here learning and growing, and it is as evil as it ever was. The world is, you know what I mean? It really isn't as evil as they made it out to be. Now it's real. It's just real life. And I'm vulnerable because I don't always catch things as they're happening, but that's okay. I got safe people around me. So
Before I
Cool.
left the church, I regretted thinking that somebody would be better off being Mormon. I'd see everybody else around me being blessed, and I'd think, why would I mess up their lives by making them go to church and pay tithing when they're doing so good?
Well, that's one of the things when you're a member, you look at everybody as a possible convert.
Yeah. So I ate the cookies myself instead of delivering them to my neighbors, buttering them up.
oh yeah, I
you
remember
also,
a missionary.
at least I did, I looked at other people's lives as sad. I looked at their views as inferior.
Yeah.
I looked at their life philosophies as something to be criticized rather than to be understood. And that's one of the things that I love about being out of the church and not believing that I belong to the one true religion is being able to listen to other people, other human beings, and being able to regard their opinions as valid and to regard their life experiences as something to learn from rather than a tale of what happens to people when they're not Mormon.
Instead of deflecting, you're absorbing.
Yeah,
And
I was.
Right,
that's
exactly.
my thing.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was
Yeah.
lucky as a kid. I grew up in Southern California in a little town called Goleta, just up northern half of Santa Barbara. And I grew up in an environment where even though the church was there, I had some of that already. My parents were very like, we had Vietnamese, Chinese folks living next door. I mean, we had all mixed races. And I share this. I live in Oklahoma now, and it's red state and just pretty ugly. And I recently shared this. I was down in the Greenville or Greenwood district, which is where they had the Tulsa massacre years ago in the 20s. And I was talking to a gentleman there, and I looked at him and I said, to be honest with you, I don't know what racism is, because I don't. I've never felt it. It's foreign to me. And I think the problem with the church is that and now that I've done more research, I think we all have. You look in the Book of Mormon, and it's just like, black skin is bad, and you see all of Joseph's environment seeping into the writing of the Book of Mormon. And
I think what you look at here is that they say it's something so good and teaching so much actual love, but I feel like they're preaching more hate than anything when it comes to that.
I think it's more control than hate.
Yeah.
I don't see the hate as much as the control.
yes,
There's a lack of emotion in what I see them doing. I wish it were hate. I could deal with that, but it's different.
yep.
Well, I think the
Well,
control is the
Kim,
hate.
I
I
could
will
be
tell
wrong,
you,
Control
but
you hate.
I don't think you're wrong, Kim, but I'll just tell you from my point of view,
Mhm.
especially when I look at the most recent policy that they've released about trans members of the church, when they're insisting that a trans person must have a safe person to go to the bathroom with, when they're
It's
insisting
ridiculous.
that trans youth cannot stay at an activity past sundown, that is
No.
hateful. That's
Yeah.
basically telling trans
Yep.
people, we don't want you here.
True.
And it's
You're
disgusting.
right.
There's plenty of bishops, priesthood holders that should have someone accompany them to the restroom,
Mhm.
but it sure as hell isn't trans people.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
It's such an
And so
epidemic
silly.
of these chimos in the church that but how dare the church
It's just bizarre.
pick a minority group and say that they are the ones that we need to watch out for. The ones we need to watch out for are the leaders who are insisting that
Yes.
we be completely ignorant to the racism, to the discrimination that goes on a daily basis, and it makes me want to spit nails.
Yeah.
Tim, you've been around since like the Joseph Smith time. What is there something you used to tell people that you regret you told them?
That if everybody lived the gospel, their lives would be better. That we wouldn't need mental health people, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Your garments would protect you in case you got in an accident.
right. Mike, what's his name? Mike Mallory says he's a member. I want to know how long you've been a member of the church, Mike, and what you know
Michael
about
Malloy, the Michael Malloy show. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. This is so weird. Because I grew up in such an eclectic neighborhood that I never tried to convert anybody except on my mission. I really wasn't happy in the church, honest. Now that I look back on it, I really wasn't happy like everybody else was. I mean, it was okay for a while, but I always had my doubts, and I say that I was living what I thought was an authentic life wasn't authentic. in so many ways. Because
Yeah.
you know, I see things. Being in leadership positions, you see a lot of shit, you know, that goes on. And like the other day, go to Jasmine's video on YouTube and look at my comment. I had a son that was molested by a member of the ward.
Jasmine Rapalai.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a winner.
And I went to the cops. I called the cops. I think I was ward clerk or exec sec at the time. I can't remember what I was. I got in trouble and the state president, I think at the time, he was also, I remember the state presidency was the police chief of Victorville at the time, I think.
Wow.
And I got in trouble for calling the cops because this priesthood holder had been molesting his children for years, and I exposed this, and they all knew about it.
Yeah.
This is back in the 90s, and when I found out, they all knew about it, and they were all covering it up. That just really pissed me off.
You got to let him repent, Tim. He's going to have a shot to repent.
That's
how I think about it. It's crazy.
I have such a hard time with this, and Tim, I'm so sorry that you quote unquote got in trouble for doing what is the right thing, the moral thing, the ethical thing.
That's crazy.
And so I know that we occasionally do have, you know, members who watch the show, and I'm glad you're here, Michael. Whenever I encounter members who are, you know, members in good standing of their ward, what I always advocate for is to please ask your bishop and your stake president to call 911 when a child has been abused. That's what I'm always going to advocate for, because children who have been abused don't need attorneys. They need victims advocates. They need counselors. They need care. They need to be believed. They don't need to be asked whether or not this happened on church property. They don't need to be asked whether or not they were complicit. They don't need to be asked any of those questions.
It happened in my home.
Wow.
My home.
Yeah.
Happened in my house.
It's nuts.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Just call 911. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's the moral thing to do. It's the ethical thing to do. It's the thing that benefits the child the most. And I know that the hotline is set up to protect the interests of the church, but it's not the church that needs protecting. They're a huge organization with plenty of attorneys and plenty of money. What needs protecting is the most vulnerable among us, and that's our kids. And if we're not protecting our kids, we're doing the wrong thing.
And it's messed him up to this day. He's still.
And that's another regret, is being taught not to take legal action. Like I didn't go after retirement with a divorce. I don't take people to court. You know, I was taught you have to resolve the things personally, that legal action's the last thing you ever do. And it really sets you up where you don't ever protect yourself.
Yeah. We
So
don't
I
ever
regret
protect
that.
They're
ourselves.
so litigious.
Yeah.
Did that guy get in trouble then, Tim? Did he go to jail?
He's in jail.
Good.
He's up at.
Okay.
Well,
he's not very far from me. I checked the other day to see if he was still in jail. Yeah, he's up in prison up in not far from where I live.
I shared an
Well, I sent it to Spotlight to check out, and there was another bishop who was molesting his children when I was a teenager that I found out later on that this guy had been molesting his family.
Oh my God.
You know,
Yeah. I had a somewhat similar experience I shared with Gene and Randy earlier. My second missionary companion was a pedophile. And I had to take him to LDS Social Services once a week. And well, he was my third companion, actually. And he should have been sent home.
Oh, mission? You should take him to social on his mission?
Yep.
Holy cow. Actor's mission. Holy
so, yeah, I got, you know, Gene got I got crazy mission stories, but yeah.
Where'd you go on your mission, Mark?
I went to Indianapolis mission.
So did he have to register as a sex offender?
So what I
May have been
heard,
convicted.
well, here's what I heard later. This is what I heard. It's through the grapevine. I heard he did go home when he was all done, and he eventually did have to register as a sex offender. And that all I heard was someone said, "Well, yeah, I heard he can't leave the state of Arizona," or something like that. I don't know how. The bottom line of that is somehow he got caught. I mean, so and it was so bizarre that when he became my companion, the first day we were out tracking, he had 2 white handbooks, and I shared this earlier. He had 2 of them. And so we were tracking, and he starts talking about girls. And I'm thinking, oh, you're just talking about the girls back home. No, he's talking about the little girls he met in his first area. And then he pulls out the second white handbook, and it's full of their pictures. He's got pictures of these little girls. And I'm out there. And just a little bit of backstory. I'd gone to the 82nd Airborne Division. I was a paratrooper, and I went on my mission when I was 23. So I'm a little more seasoned here, and I ain't putting up with this crap, And I snagged that white handbook. It was gone. I looked in it, and I said, "This is gone." And then, I had, and I'll keep it short this time. I had an experience where I had to call the mission president on him because he got away from me at church. I mean, I wasn't watching him like a hawk, and he got away, and I had to. Next thing I know, he's giving a blessing to this girl, promising that we're going to go visit her in the hospital. He gave her one of his tags. I had to get the tag back. I had to tell the parents, no, we're not going to go to the hospital, And then I got home, and I called the mission president, and I said, "President, I literally went, President, talk to him." It was bad, and that church, and I think the point here, and this, if I'm getting it right here with some of this stuff, I think some of the regrets that we have not saying stuff is perhaps not saying things strongly enough when things like this happen, or them not following through. And in this case, this elder served his whole mission. This investigator I had in my first area, she had a 8-year-old daughter. I think it wasn't right away, but after I left the area, a few months later, she went to the mission president and told him that this elder had been inappropriate with her daughter. And that's what's, to me, that's where the church needs to be held accountable. And there's some lawsuits that recently have occurred? Is it some laws and the church is still trying to fight this whole idea that they don't have to report? And
Yeah.
There was a good show about that on Sunday night somewhere.
Yeah,
we had
a
really good show about
Randy, Jean, and I had a good show about that. But we talked a lot about the architecture of abuse. And if you haven't looked at that podcast, I highly, highly recommend it. It's so well done, very well produced. And it exposes a lot of the cover-up that's happening in the church right now. And the thing is, it's funny to me, Mark, that you say, aren't there some lawsuits going on right now? Well, there are, and there have been, and they just aren't well enough publicized. If you go to floodlit.org, it's a list of all of the offenders who have been charged, tried, and convicted. If you listen to the Architecture of Abuse podcast, it talks about the policies, and it literally is the church architecture allows abuse. And when pedophiles know that they get a pass or that they have better status than the victims do, guess where they go?
Yeah.
They talk to each other, and they know the places where they're protected and where they're safe. And it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse the more that the church protects the predator rather than protecting the victim. Well, and what's happening right now is that the church is prioritizing the repentance of the predator and the reputation of the church over the health of the victim.
Yeah, and part of this, the church, what's the word I would use here? The church actually empowers this, and how they empower it is what did we always do as teenagers? What we were taught to do: go confess your sexual sin. And we've got all these stories of these bishops asking crazy questions. And I told my daughters at the time when I still had a good relationship with them, And I talked to the bishop at the time too, and I said, "You're not going to be in the room with my daughter alone."
That's like a
that's
that's
not
like a
going to
dream job. Yeah, if you're like a pedophile being a
Yes.
religious leader, it's like a dream job.
I mean, and
Like-
and at the end of the day, the problem is if we grow up in the church where these young people are. I grew up in the church. I was baptized when I was 8. What are you taught? You're taught, oh,
follow the leader.
did you pet with your girlfriend? You better go confess that. And are you
Tell
masturbating?
all the details.
They're asking these sexually explicit questions that they have no business asking, and that's the source of all this. Is you have
Right.
adult men, who can ask sexually explicit questions under the guise of religion, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And you're just taught that, and then you have people like us that eventually leave, but when you're in it, what do? You go in there and you become subservient, and you go, oh yeah, my boyfriend and I, we shouldn't have, and da da da. Next year, no, you're especially if you got a bad one. If you've got one that has already been mentioned, oh my word, that's just like
details.
that's just like building the steps so he can go in there. And I never had it happen to me personally. I think I know of young women and women there's just tons of stories out there where they were asked just questions that they shouldn't have been asked. It's stuff that
everyone.
is
one of the details, like irrelevant details.
Right, exactly. These guys some of them are asking detailed sexual act specific questions. And so now you have this young person who is now going, well, if I touch myself, I need to go talk to the bishop.
Yeah, I wish
I
now I
was
could have
asked
said,
questions when I was
Right.
12 years old, to get my temple recommend to go down to Arizona, because we didn't have a temple in Denver yet, and do our little road trip for baptismal work. And I was asked questions that I had no concept of their existence and was terrified in the moment. I didn't know how to
Oh, yeah.
answer them. I didn't know if it should be a yes or a no. And I got lucky, I
That's
guess,
bizarre.
and answered the right ways. And then later looked words up, because I'm that kid that
Yeah.
looks
That's how it
everything
is.
up.
They
And,
introduce kids to sexual stuff.
and
Like,
then felt
what? What's
gross.
porno?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
there were so many kids that I know that I spoke to personally, either that were my friends when I was growing up, or that I was the young women's leader over, who didn't even know what self-pleasure was until their bishop
Yeah.
asked them about it. And I just found out today,
Ridiculous.
I was doing an interview on another channel today, and I just found out today that there's actually a calling in the church for somebody to be a pornography counselor.
Oh,
I thought you were
And
gonna say
here's
coach
the
for a minute.
problem. They're
Oh.
not a real counselor. They're not trained and licensed by the state to provide mental health services.
What
So
do
how
they
can they be a
do?
counselor? They're
That's
basically
bizarre.
called as someone who is, that if you have a pornography problem, well, let me refer you to the pornography counselor. They have training on this. Well, basically all it means is that they've read the handbook that tells them to refer them to the church addiction recovery program.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was
yeah.
so
Jody
angry when I
Hildebrand.
heard this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get Jody on the case.
I see lawsuit.
And now let's have a word from our sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, and all of you viewers that are watching, we are so grateful that you come into our show. We're so
Yes, thank
thankful
you.
to have you be a part of it,
Thank you.
and we really appreciate that. But if I could remind y'all to maybe hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed to Megan's channel or Jean's channel or my channel, because we broadcast on all 3 channels, please, we would love to have your subscription. And we're going to be doing this every Tuesday night, and it's so fun to have so many people making great comments. So thank you all. But remember to like and subscribe. And now back to our show.
Thanks,
Okay.
Randy.
Thanks,
You're
Randy.
welcome.
Yeah, and Randy, I've linked it to mine too. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
good.
Yes.
Have
Does
you?
the show.
Okay. We'll
Jules,
put them all in
subscribe to
the
Jules's channel.
comments.
Thanks, Michael
Awesome.
Malloy. Thanks for
So,
subbing.
it-
It's the best free way to support the channel. And also, if you like the
Yeah.
episode while it's going, it makes sure that the episode gets out to more people who are interested in this content and who need it. So, also, I'm just going to put a plug in to share this episode with somebody who you know who's deconstructing or is having doubts or needs some support in their faith journey. Because I have to say, for me, when I started to have difficulties with doctrine, I really felt alone. I felt like I was the only one out there. And it really would have helped me to have a community like this to at least bounce questions off of.
Yeah.
I really, what I say on my channel is that I don't ever want to destroy anyone's faith, but I want to make the church a safer place for the people who choose to stay. And I want to give support to the people who feel like they need to leave so that they don't feel like they're alone.
That's great.
And just
Thank you,
to let
Megan.
those people know who believe that they can stay and change the church from the inside, it's a losing battle. You're never going to win.
Yep.
It's going to wear you down and suck the life out of you. So my best advice is to leave now, but it's your choice.
Yeah. Well, that's
Trevor,
the
Trevor, we've heard comments from you, but is there anything you've ever told people that when you were a member that you wish you hadn't have told them?
Not really. The whole guilt thing about masturbating, that kind of stuff, is silly, man. But
So you
when I was
regret
18.
telling your bishop that you masturbated when you were Mormon?
Yeah, just because it's like, what am I doing? In hindsight. But
When I was growing up, that didn't exist.
oh, really?
I take
That
every
was like the whole
opportunity
church.
I
Well,
have now
see-
to tell everybody that I masturbate.
It
Have it on your
came
business
about
card?
it came about in the 90s, and it got worse after 2000, because I've asked my sons, what did the
Okay.
bishop say to you about it? And they say, he said, just don't play with yourself, basically. And then it got much more. I think 2000, 2001, there was a turning point where the questions became
Okay.
more personal and more specific.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be. I was about that age, around 2000.
I mean, it almost could be a turning point is when the church writes a letter to the bishop saying, hey, oral sex might not be a good thing. And then all the wives and husbands pushing
That's
back on that.
1982, 83.
And then they say, don't
82,
mind the
yeah.
last
There
letter.
was a thing in the 80s where they finally came in and said what a husband and wife do in their own bedroom is, I remember that, is their business.
Yeah,
I
it
would
was
have a feeling,
because my crazy cousins were actually talking about it. And I think I was probably 13, 14 at the time. And I had no idea what oral was. And, they started talking about this letter. And I was like, what in the world is this? But I do want to say, I just have to put in a good plug. I actually had a good bishop when I needed to go in and confess. Well, I should say needed in air
needed.
quotes because I was the victim of a coercive control relationship. It was basically SA. I ended up pregnant before I was married, and my mom insisted that I
Wow.
read the miracle of forgiveness and go in to confess to my bishop. And I just have to say that my bishop was very kind and compassionate. He was a good man. His last name was Lacey, Bishop Lacey. And I could tell by the look on his face that he was very sad for the situation that I was in and he wanted the best for me. The only question that he asked me was, was this the only instance or were there several relationships? And I just had to say, I don't know how to say no to people. I was never taught that. And for those of you who don't know my story, I was a victim of trafficking as a child. And so I was programmed not to ever say no to anybody who put their advances on me. And I literally was not capable of it. And so, yeah, I had to tell my bishop it was several relationships. This was just the one that Thank you, Gene. That's my
Number
story
one
about
selling book at Sunstone.
that is my story about healing from trauma. But I was really grateful for that bishop because he did not pass any judgment on me. He made it very easy on me. He didn't ask me any inappropriate questions. He just said, well, there's probably going to be a disciplinary council, but you don't need to attend. We'll just let you know what happens, and I'm going to advocate.
You just say he was good before?
But I know it sounds bad, but it was very compassionate to me because I didn't want to attend a disciplinary council, and as a bishop, that was kind of his job. That's kind of what he was told to do. But he told me, he said, I'll just let you know what happens, and I want you to know I'm going to advocate for you not to receive any discipline for this because I don't think it was your fault. That's what he said to me. And then when we finished the interview, he gave me a $5 bill and he said, go buy yourself a hot fudge sundae because you did something really hard tonight and I'm proud of you.
Wow.
Wow.
So I had a lot of terrible experiences in the church, but that one bishop was at least one that was really good to me.
No. No. I was
my
lucky.
bishop-
I had good bishops growing up myself.
I had good bishops, I think, pretty much.
I had a crappy bishop when I was first married, and when the first time that my wife and I needed to renew our temple recommends, she went in first and she came out crying, and she couldn't even speak. She was so upset. And then the bishop says, "Brother Watts, do you want to come in?" So I went in and I said, "Why is she crying?" And he said, "I'm going to ask you this one time. Have your lips ever touched your wife's body below the waist?" And I'm like, well, yes. And he grabbed my recommend and he ripped it up, and he had ripped hers up.
Oh,
Wow.
So
I would have loved it
we
if you
went
said
right
no.
to the
I don't know what you're
state
talking
president.
about. I never did
We
that.
went
She's a
right to the
liar.
state president, and the state president
crazy.
apologized on his behalf and rewrote our temple recommends. But we found out he was doing that with all the couples. I think he just
Dear
got off
God.
and
Wait,
imagining
but was it only
what he was
one?
asking.
Was it only one-sided? Was it only don't go down on the ladies?
What year was that,
No,
Randy?
no.
Was that
She asked my wife. It was an old ward in Mesa. I think it was the fourth
Randy,
ward
okay?
in Mesa.
what year was that? Was that when the
It
letter
would have been.
82?
I was married in 1981, so it would have been 1981, end of 1981.
82, the letters came out in 82.
He was
Okay.
ahead of the times.
Because I
Okay,
was my first wife and myself were attending a marital class at BYU, and they came out in 82 because we talked about them. He had copies of them for us to show us what was going on, and then when it was rescinded a few weeks later, he told us about it.
Okay, so Tim, I have a question, a genuine question for you, because you've been around a long time and you've experienced a lot, and I want to benefit from your experience.
Uh-oh.
We all know, all of us on this panel, we all know how difficult it is to get the church to change about anything. And we all know that the church does not bend to any members writing in to ask for changes in church policy. So where the hell did this come from? How in the world did this come about? Was it the wives of the Q15
Yes.
who were saying, I
It
mean,
was
what happened?
what
I mean, we know Emma Smith got the word of wisdom instated, which had a
we were
profound negative effect on all of us. But how did this letter come to pass?
it was somebody's wife who complained about it. Could have
That they
been a
didn't want to
journalist,
do it or what?
probably
It might have
that they
been a
didn't want to
guy.
do it.
Might have been a
It was
guy. Thought it was a
probably
chore.
she probably was a stake president's or a bishop's, maybe even a GA's wife who got upset about it, or they were a lot of women who were getting upset about it. I don't know exactly,
Okay, but here's
but I
the
know that it
problem that
wasn't
I have.
Kimball wasn't for it. Apparently it was his counselors were Tanner and Hinckley at the time.
Yeah, Hinckley would have been in there.
Sounds like a Packer.
Okay,
I don't
but
think
here's
so.
the problem that I have. Even if there were lots of complaints from lots of wives or whomever the complaints came for, they had to meet as a quorum. They had to have an agreement to put this letter out that was against their own self-interest. And I've never seen anything wilder in my entire life.
Well,
Well, it's not against their interests.
It was
They had
just
a second
the first
anointing.
presidency. Wait, it was just the first presidency. It wasn't the quorum. It was
Well,
just the three
Okay.
of them.
here,
'Cause the
But it
letter
doesn't
came
apply.
from-
If you had the second anointing, none of those rules apply to you. You can do whatever you want sexually. If you have the second
Slow
anointing.
down. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Okay, it was the first presidency that signed it. And from what I remember, I think it was Tanner who was the one who wanted. I don't think it was Hinckley. If I remember what I heard was it was. Who was the first presidency back then?
Maybe they were just testing the new automatic signing things, and somebody said, "Okay, send it out. Look, their names are on it." It was a prank.
I don't know, but I just got a text from my daughter asking me to be more quiet, so I'm going to try not to get so
No,
upset
don't.
about it.
Oh, don't.
that's funny.
When Megan started by saying, "Tim, you've been around so long," I thought she was going to ask him what it was like in the Garden of Eden.
I was thinking something else.
Megan, you are not monopolizing the conversation. We love everything you say.
Oh, thanks.
No, hang on. Let me figure out who it was. Who were his
On
counselors?
what he's saying, I think you're going to see. I think what
It
changes
was
the church and will change it in the future is monetary things.
it was Kimball, Tanner, and Romney.
Okay,
Ooh.
it was either Tanner or Romney
Yeah.
because Kimball was not for it. That's
Did
why
somebody
it
do a
was like,
sunstone paper on this, Tim?
yes, somebody did a Sunstone paper. Somebody did an article on this also. It
And
was-
this is the letter that said husband and wives can do what they want in the bedroom, right?
Maybe
Right.
next Tuesday we'll read the letter and we'll just talk about that.
Was it an oral presentation?
Oh, you still make a joke, Randy. I'm gonna say an oral presentation on oral. Oral presentation.
It
I'll
was
be in Salt Lake
euphemistically
next
called
week.
the third anointing by the Quorum of the 15.
The third anointing.
Well, you know, with what Tim said something really good earlier, and I absolutely 100% agree with what he said.
January 5th, 1982.
Yeah, and what
Okay.
he said, Tim, what you said that I absolutely agree with is that it's a fool's errand, essentially. I'm using my words now. A fool's errand to attempt to change the church. They're just not going to change. But what I do think they respond to is they're a business at their core. They always have been. And
Yes.
so as the membership starts to decline and continues to decline as it is, and the good news is that it is declining pretty severely, and they know the truth. They know their attendance is down all across the board, and they're lying to the public and putting out, shady numbers, but they know. And so we already see the church making changes to make them more palatable to a wider audience, and I think that's the only thing that at the end of the day, once they start losing money. But the thing that irks me about the church is that they don't need tithing.
Oh no.
They don't,
They do not.
because of ends and peak. They can cover their operating costs in perpetuity
Oh, yeah.
because of the interest from that. And so, but yet they continue to get tithing. So that's the only kind of downside of this. I mean, they're going to continue to have all this money, and they've been so smart in terms of investing it that if the membership does trail off, it still is kind of difficult for them to change policy and to do those types of things. But I think at the end of the day, that's what it's going to have to be. It's going to have to get so severe, that, I mean, they're talking about building a temple here in Tulsa. Supposedly it's already approved, which is crazy.
Well, their goal is to put a temple within 60 miles of every member, every ward.
Well, they got to
wanna
come up to
build-
northern Minnesota then.
Well, I mean, they have so much money, and that, what do you buy when you have an unlimited supply of money? You buy the things that nobody's making anymore. You buy time and you buy land. And
$60 million
so
billboards is what they're going to be.
they're going to be building temples until the end of time, and they're going to put them wherever they want to, and they're going to continue to bully
Well,
municipalities into accepting their designs.
It's
So-
growing in Africa. We just all saw that post about they baptized over 100 people in someplace in Africa. They're going to have mass baptisms in Africa for the next 2 or 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years. Who knows? America's dead. Most of the West is dead. South America's dead. So they're putting all their efforts into Africa.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean,
Johannesburg
China-
will be the new Zion.
Russia was a bust. They thought when the wall came down that people would join. Well, that was a bust. No,
They thought they were going to go into Taiwan
Yes,
when that
About-
happened, and
China.
Yeah.
Wasn't India another bust?
India was a
India.
bust. Well, India,
We got
I
a
don't
gold
know if it's
statue of
Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith out of it.
Um,
Nelson's just jealous it wasn't.
Well, what I think we may see here soon, and I've heard talk of it, is a only an hour meeting on Sunday.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
that'll happen. Well, I think they'll get to the point where they pay
And it'll be a
members and stuff.
potluck.
I remember when the block became 3 hours, and it was with the gas crisis in the 70s.
In the 70s.
Everything
Yeah.
changed. I mean, that,
Yep.
and that was the reason I was told it was to help us do the best we could with our financial money rather than driving back and forth to church every day for our meetings.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I have a
Yeah,
point
and
of
there-
order to talk about for a second.
Yes,
I
Gene.
actually have been waiting to interview somebody for a long time, and I've scheduled it for 1 minute from now
Oh,
Why would you
Uh-oh.
do that, Gene?
because we're only supposed to go an hour and a half anyway. And
Gene.
Good for
so,
you, Gene.
but I could still have this go. What I don't know is if you can end the live stream.
I can end it.
Megan can. Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
going to bow out and do my other thing. Randy, you don't have to come on it, but you could if you wanted.
Who are you interviewing?
He doesn't want to
Barrett
say.
Bergen, a filmmaker. He presented of his film snippet at Sunstone.
The
Nice.
angel.
The Angel.
Snippet,
Yeah.
really?
Oh, I want to see it.
You want to see it?
I missed
was-
it. Yeah.
It was fun. I'll see if we can air it on my show with them.
Ooh, I would love to air that on my show too.
Yeah. So
Ask
I'll
him if
tell
he'll
him.
come on my podcast.
Yeah, I will. All right. So I'm going to say goodbye. And if I
Bye,
come back,
Gene.
then it didn't happen.
Good one, Gene.
Send me a link, Gene.
All righty.
Okay.
So before Gene's point of order, what I was going to say is that, the church has started to make all of these changes. I think they consider somewhat subtle, but I don't see it as subtle. It's very glaring to me. They have changed the images on Google Maps from an angel Moroni to signify their buildings into a cross. Elder Bednar has been on a staunch campaign for at least the last 10 years to change the in-speak. Elder Bednar has started saying things like, well, like we just heard the clip that I played earlier, there are no homosexual members of the church. He's started to say things like, don't say temple, say house of the Lord. He said, there is no free agency, there's only moral agency.
Moral agency.
He is trying to change the in-speak of the church. And then Elder Oaks recently said that there are temporary commandments, which I think is a setup for him to be able to say later on, well, that was only a temporary commandment, and now we have this new commandment.
Well,
So,
with the release of the Revelation letter on polygamy,
yeah,
that came out, and that them saying Joseph Smith was a polygamist, they're probably going to say that was a temporary commandment.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I've already
do
said that in
think
the
that
Book
the
of Mormon.
church is changing. I think it's set up, it's setting itself up. The leadership is setting the stage to make some really big changes. And I guess my question to the panel, for each one of you to answer is, when they make these changes, because I don't think it's an if, is it going to be a positive thing, or is it going to really be much more like gaslighting that's just going to be more harmful to people?
More gaslighting.
Hey, I love you all.
How could
I'm
it-
probably going to switch over and interview with Gene,
All right.
or
Okay.
he'll
Thank
never
you,
speak
Randy.
for me again.
Thanks,
All right,
Randy.
Randy.
But thank you all, and appreciate you all, and all the
See you next
listeners.
week.
Okay,
Thanks,
See you
Randy.
next week.
Take
you
care.
bet.
See you, Randy.
Yeah, I agree with Trevor. It's going to be more gaslighting, just kind of lead you another direction, than what they're doing
Well, they've jettisoned and abandoned so much. I mean, Adam God. They changed the
Blood
temple
atonement.
endowment, blood atonement.
Yeah,
Well,
they just want to be generic.
I was sharing this with Gene earlier today, and that was my recent discovery that David O. McKay told O.C.
Yes.
Tanner that, and the key word here is the word we. He told O.C. Tanner that we know that Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
So what that says
Yeah.
to me is that decades ago, senior leadership within the church knew the truth.
Yes.
And
for a long time.
And I think most of them, I think it's one of two things. It's one, they know and they're just choosing to ignore it because they want the power, they want all the stuff that goes along with it, and maybe also that they're still hooked themselves and they're in this kind of hypnosis that the church causes when you're active, and I think that's part of it too. But at the end of the day, and as I look at what the church has done in my life, that's what just irks me a lot. And I think, you call a spade, and that's why I liked earlier, Tim, what you said. This is black and white. Okay.
Yeah.
We just encourage people to leave. It is simply an unhealthy organization in just about every way you can think of. And so
they want not only do they want 10% of your income, they want 10% of your time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and
So not just 10% of your time. I would argue that it's way more than 10%.
Well,
much as they
but
can get.
at a minimum 10% of your
yes.
time.
So
I learned how to pray unceasingly, where every single thought was an utterance of prayer to God. They
yeah.
took my entire mind, my entire life. They want it all.
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
will take it if you give it to them.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
They steal your identity. They steal your
Yeah.
worth. They steal your life view, and they control you. And we all know now that you talked about this control piece earlier, that's the beautiful thing about when we leave. We now are in full control. And how beautiful is that? And
Right.
that is just amazing, right? And I think that's the pitch to the TBMs too. Is look, at the end of the day, I know you like it, it's great and everything, but you're not in control. You're not.
No.
And as soon as you do become in control, man, the light, I preach to the choir, the light comes on, and you go, "Oh my word, I am happier now than I have ever been in the church," because the church's happiness is a fake one. They teach you that, oh, if I read my Book of Mormon every day, on my mission, I went nuts. I read the Book of Mormon 27 times.
Oh my goodness.
I calculated that if I read 31 pages a day, I could read it in a month. So I went nuts.
How did
Well,
you stay awake?
I think the church leaders are just like Joseph Smith, where if you tell a lie, but it makes people have more faith, then the lie can't be bad.
That's right.
Right.
Well,
That's the whole Book of Mormon says that too. It's the whole motivation.
Yeah,
well, what did Mark Hoffman say about truth and reality? Mark said something about.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Where people believe it's true, then it's true.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer her question real quick before I head off to bed. But
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
what I see happening with the changes and the different verbiage, like not having different sections for young women's anymore, what it does is creates a real distance between those that have left because you don't know the language anymore. And so it makes you
Yeah.
an even bigger threat, an identifiable threat to those that are members. And that's the one thing I've noticed when I communicate with a member occasionally, where if I slip up, then it's like, oh, you're not really part of the team anymore
Yeah.
Well,
because
yeah,
I
and
don't
what,
know the
Yeah.
verbiage.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I still do.
But they've done it all the time. I've seen
Yeah.
this throughout the history of the church.
Yeah.
There's that verbiage internally that keeps
Well,
changing.
it's
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
this push to change the church to the Church of Jesus Christ. Well,
Hmm.
when they abandoned their um, Secretary of State articles of incorporation and changed it from the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, when they abandon that and make it the Church of Jesus Christ, then you'll know it's official.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what's funny about me when there are members, there's some members that I grew up with and have known my life, and I think there's a few of them that don't know that I've left still. And when I speak to them, I speak to them as if I'm still active. They can't tell the difference. I'll shift in, and my wife, she jokes at going into Mormon mode, aren't you? Yeah, I heard that. And she, my wife's a never Mormon, so she this is all foreign to her, and I shared this with Jean again earlier too. I took her to my wife to church one time, and I took her to a fast and testimony meeting, and she relished, and it was kind of fun for us because my current wife's name is Michelle, and my ex-wife's name is Michelle.
Oh boy.
So we went.
Interesting.
So my joke is I married the wrong Michelle, and so so when we went to church, of course she made sure that she introduced herself to the bishop as Sister Michelle Stoddard, and my ex-wife was there. I mean, she wasn't there right there at that conversation, but she was there in the ward that day, and yeah, so she saw kind of one of the crazy meetings, and so it was important to me that she understood what organization was part of my life for how long, and yeah, and I think again, Tim, I think you're spot on with that whole analogy that the church, you're not going to affect change. And John Dehlin, I love him, but I think that's the one piece that I don't completely agree with. I think this whole idea, because he kind of shares it as part of his message, and he's done a great yeoman's job here, like Gene and everyone else is doing. But this idea that somehow you can change the church, nope.
Yes.
It's not going to happen. And at the end of the day, I think we all need to figure out the creative ways that when we talk to a TBM, that's my struggle. How do you coach it, and how do you tell them that, look, man, I'm happier, and it's hard because it goes to what I said earlier, and that's this whole idea that when you're a TBM, oh my word, it's just got to be right. You can't tell me it's wrong, and there's
So, Mark, just to answer your question about how do you talk to a TBM, I would say you love them where they are.
Yeah.
Because we were all there once at some point, and when we leave, we become a mirror to those who stay, and we reflect back all the things that they dislike about themselves. We reflect back all the things that they dislike about the church, and we challenge their cognitive dissonance. When we leave, it makes it psychologically more difficult for the TBMs to stay because they have shelf items too. They have
Yep.
questions too. They have doubts
Yeah.
too. And so, I'm never an advocate for pulling anybody out of their faith. I would not want my parents right now to go through a faith crisis. I don't think they would survive it.
yeah,
And what they are experiencing right now is a faith that brings them some cognitive dissonance because they have, the majority of their kids and grandkids who have left the church, and that's really hard for them. But by the same token, they take that hardship and they lay it at the feet of their Savior, and they feel peace and comfort in that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want my parents to have to go through that cognitive dissonance without the balm of religion to soothe that for them. And so all I say is that, you know, I love TBMs. I wish, and I will have to say this, you know, things that I wish that I had said when I was Mormon that I wasn't emphatic enough about. One of the things that I regret is when I left, that I was too vocal about the things that I had learned with people who weren't ready to hear it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't
I'm the
ever want to
opposite.
tear down somebody's faith. And so what I said in my book, when I wrote my book and about my healing journey, and I have a Mormon chapter in there, I talked about some of the problems with the culture that I didn't like. But I also said, look, if you want to go look up the research, it's out there. I'm not going to put it here in this book. All I'm going to say is that when you have a problem or a question, when it is detrimental to your mental health, you have to choose the thing that's the most loving to
Yeah.
you.
Right.
And the final thing, the final word that I'm going to end on is, Tim, when I went to Sunstone a couple weeks ago, I got a pin just for you.
Me?
And yes, I'm going to need your address so I can mail it to you.
Okay.
Can you see what it says?
No.
No.
If you're a lot
It
closer.
says,
Well, hang
it
on.
says make Adam God again.
Gotta get a red hat.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Hey, I'll end with this as well. I think to your point, Megan, one of the things that I've tried to do in my journey and my exit is answer in the simplest terms, what is it? It's not what you're telling me. You guys told me what it was, but it's not that. So what I've tried to do for the last 10 years or so is really boil it down to what is it? What's the simplest form of the story of how this thing, because it's so complex. There's so many historical events. And for me personally, I think the simplest statement that there is that you can make about it, and I think it's true, is that Joseph made it all up. Because
Yeah.
He did. And
Made it all up.
that's the simplest explanation. And when I talk to people, like people that aren't members of the church that have questions, I will tell them, and I'm pretty straightforward. I will say, that's what happened. There's no God in this church. There's just Joseph and Joseph's version of that God. And that is the truth. And, Dan Vogel points out very eloquently, and he's like the preeminent expert on Joe, how Joseph, when he started, he morphed that whole story. It just kind of evolved as his understanding, and then it's how he started riffing and seeing new different ideas. The church, its doctrine changed as his thoughts changed. And Dan's theory, and you're probably aware of this, is that Joseph, he basically says he was a pious fraud.
Yeah,
And
I think he's right.
And I think he's right, but I also think that Joseph kind of knew there was less pious there than there was.
I disagree.
Well,
I think he was
and-
delusional. I think he was so
his
narcissistic
change-
that his thoughts were God's thoughts.
He
when he
was
got to
very
that point.
eclectic,
Yeah.
and he borrowed from everybody. He stole and borrowed from everybody he could.
Yep.
Beginning with Swedenborg and Dick, and then when he was introduced to Seychelles and learned Hebrew and learned about Elohim, and then when Neubauer shows up in Nauvoo and teaches him about the Kabbalah, he learned from his mentors,
Yeah.
and he knew what to use and how to affect people's lives. And so-
Yeah, one thing
And-
about
and I
Joseph
think-
that is very, very different than what Mormonism is today is that Joseph was taking little bits of wisdom and knowledge from all kinds of different faith
Yeah.
traditions
Everywhere.
and all kinds of different
Yep.
groups, and he was conglomerating it all together into something where nowadays Mormons will exclude every other idea and faith tradition as invalid, but that's the opposite of what Joseph was doing. He was making a huge collection of different ideologies and different stories and different mythologies and trying to bring it all together.
Yeah, and I think also, and I believe the second part of this, but for me, as I've tried to reconcile, it's not that he just made it up, but that at its heart and core, it's always been a business. He wanted to support his family. He knew if he started a church, he had to, because I'm an inventor. He knew that he had to have product differentiation.
If we could find out more information on the Gold Bible Company, which was started, which the Smiths may have started in the 1820s, 18 teens. If we could find out more information on that, we would know more.
Yeah.
And we've got Randy Bell looking at Dartmouth College and what was going on there.
Yeah, Jules, you were going to say something.
Well, from seeing, how everything was brought together, things have changed now too. We're seeing a lot of things change. Even, Joseph Smith made it all up. We're starting to see that the church is starting to make new rules and that they just are doing it to fit in with everybody else. So they're kind of making, continuing the process,
Yeah. Yeah. So Michael Malloy, this brings it all the way back around to the very beginning, because we talked about this right at the very beginning. I said, obviously, the gold plates are in a warehouse, in a government warehouse, in a wooden crate with a stencil on the side that says,
the
no
golden
need to look
plates.
in this box. There's nothing to see here.
Megan, I've actually been to one of those warehouses, and this was just, it's called a MOB Center. So it's when I used to be on DMAT. And these government warehouses are amazing. And these were just medical supplies and, our tents that we would set up for disaster relief. And I remember going through 3 rooms, and all you would see were defibrillators in them. And they're massive, and they're not even wooden crates, they're metal crates. So, you wouldn't even be able to x-ray through them to see what's in there. And it was
well,
exactly. It's right next to the Ark of the Covenant, because that's where we keep those
where
religious artifacts.
I actually subscribe to the theory that, like I mentioned earlier, with Joseph's cut on his thumb, I think he did make plates of tin. I think that's the most likely explanation. And I also think that, and this has been put out there, and I just tend to agree with it, that he took the note-taking patterns he learned as a Methodist exhorter, and he put little notes in the hat. And when he would start to dictate, he would have, just like we do 3x5 cards when we'd give a talk in the church, right? He'd put his 3x5 card in the hat, and he'd start riffing, and they would start scribing, and and that way. And for me too, when I look at this story, again, I'm an entrepreneur, so I look at it and go, well, okay, I've started my own business. I kind of know what that I had to do, and I'm like, well, he gets arrested for glass looking, and I just think, I'm a guy, he's a guy, so I put myself in his shoes, and I go, well, I don't want to work on a ranch. This treasure digging thing is pretty cool, but man, if I keep doing this, I ain't going nowhere. I'm going to get arrested. I literally think that entered his brain. I think he knew that if I kept doing this like this, but if I were to figure out a different way to use the sear stone and come up with a product I could sell, and that's what happened. That's literally what happened. What's the first thing he did? His first effort was not to start a church. It was to sell copies of the Book of Mormon.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The other thing, though, I just want to pause it to everybody for a second, is like, people complain a lot of the times. They say, if he really did have gold plates, they would have been way too heavy for him to be running around the woods with them. But guys,
pounds.
He was a prophet of God. Couldn't he have been endowed with special strength that would have allowed him to heft the plates and run around the woods with them and bury them in a barrel of beans and be able to pull them back up out again? I just want you to consider the idea. That's all. He could have used the Force. Why have we not considered the Kyber crystals yet at this point?
That was actually for
someone's a Star Wars fan.
when my shelf broke, and I shared this again, I keep saying this, but I shared it with Gene earlier. My shelf broke in initially 2 steps. One, I'm in sacrament meeting, and it's prior to my divorce. My wife divorced me, my ex-wife, and I just had this feeling. I'm a sensitive person, and I'm just like, man, something's not right. This is not. There's something wrong here. And then in that same meeting or a meeting thereafter, I'm reading in the standard works, and I discovered that Joseph died in a shootout, and which my mother already knew, of course. And I think she'd shared it with me, and she had sent me a bunch of books that I never read. But theologically, just kind of going, you kind of made a joke out of it. But theologically, I went, would a New Testament prophet do that? I mean, he's claiming to be just like these New Testament dudes, And I'm like, nah, I don't think a New Testament prophet. There's no precedent for a New Testament prophet shooting somebody or stabbing somebody. So I'm like, that was my big bag. I was like, okay, you guys claim to be the restored church. Well, let's just line this up theologically. And I think you can do that too and make an argument, a very strong argument that it's not what it is, But that's not the argument that we all know. We just shared anyway. When you said that, I thought of that. I was like, my shelf was breaking. That was the thing that, yeah. And I read that. I'm like, okay, that's not a prophet. And then of course, what do I learn later? They took off their garments. They were drinking wine. They were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And it very well could have been that there's one guy that forget the researcher who claims that his brother actually shot him.
Oh, those are the guys.
And I watched that whole thing, and he's got a pretty legit.
But the expert from New York disagrees with him.
Really?
Yes. There's 2 videos or 3, and if you watch, there's the one guy who was a New York detective, if I remember right. He disagrees with his findings. He won't accept it. Of course, that guy is also an anti-polygamist. He's a polygamy denier.
Oh.
So
yeah, there's bias. There's bias there, but
there's bias there.
Yeah.
And I can't. Okay, explain this to me. Brigham Young's on a mission. So how can Brigham Young? I think 6 of the 12 were out on missions. So how could Brigham Young tell Willard Richards and John Taylor to kill Joseph Smith? What? Why?
Oh.
If he.
So the guy that I watched, they don't have anything to do with it. His theory is that Hiram killed him in order to prevent him from suffering. So the mob's rushing in, and he decides to shoot Joseph so that Joseph does not have to die by the hands of a mob.
I hadn't heard
He knows
that
he's
one.
going to die. Yeah, so that was his theory, and he did the whole entry wound, exit wound thing, and the death mask and all that kind of stuff. He's got a pretty legitimate case, and I think it's plausible. I don't know, again, if for sure, but that's his theory. His theory is that Hiram killed Joseph so that the mob wouldn't kill him, because the mob's rushing in.
But Hiram was killed before Joseph.
Or was he? Or no, wait, oh no. Or was it Willard Richards that actually shot him? Willard was in there. So
yeah, Willard was in there.
Yeah, Willard. So yeah, that's right. Sorry, I had it wrong. His theory is Willard shot him for that specific reason, but that the mob's coming in, he's his protector, and it kind of makes sense. There's a feasibility to it. So but the other piece of this is he falls out the window, right? Well, there's no gunshot that's going to push you out a window. This just ain't going to happen.
No, looking at ballistics, it wouldn't.
He jumped out the window. There's no ifs and buts about that. He had to have jumped or been pushed or whatever. But yeah, so I think that's what's, when I discovered that was my shelf breaker, or I guess the straw that broke the camel's back. And then like all of you, the last 10 years, I've, watch Dan Bogle, John DeLynn, Mormon Discussions, Bill Reel. I look for all this stuff, and I think we all do this because cognitively, for me anyway, I was so in it so much that I just have to know. I have to put it in its box. I have to go. This is what it is. This is what it is. And I think I'm hoping that later, as I go on and continue to interact, that's what I was talking about TBMs, that, like you all, I can help them, and just answer questions. And, but unfortunately for me, the sad part of this whole church thing is that my children, I literally, I'm lucky I have my wife's children that love me, but my wife alienated my daughter, both my daughters. I have a separate issue with my son, but it's a little bit different. But my two daughters, I don't know if I ever will.
I have a daughter. I have a daughter that won't talk to me.
Yeah,
I
had my youngest or my oldest daughter, when I was going through my divorce, she was 14. I had court-ordered counseling. Went to the counseling, and I share this. It was a crazy experience. She had completely internalized her mother. She was like mini mom in the meeting, and all I can share about it is that when it was done, there was two thoughts that occurred to me. One, I just shared, you've internalized your mother, and two, the things that she was saying were so bizarre that I was like, there's something wrong with you. You are mentally ill. There is definitely something wrong. And I remember the counselor told me, because I was telling her, I go, I don't think she's ever going to come around. And the counselor says, well, I've dealt with a lot of Mormon families and stuff, and she'll come around. And she's 24 now. She'll be 25 here in November. I don't see it. She's pregnant. She hasn't told me. She's not going to tell me. She'll likely not even bring the child by ever.
Yeah, so, I know.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I say that the Mormon Church is not about families.
Yeah,
never has been.
They like to say families are forever, but they mean a very specific type of family. And when I was, I had my kids, and my former spouse joined the church, but was only active for a few months. And I really wanted to go through the temple. And once I went through the temple, I wanted to have my kids sealed to me. And I basically got laughed at and said, the church is about families. It's about whole families. So, sister, you can't be sealed to your children because you don't have a worthy priesthood holder by your side. And so
horrible. Just horrible.
If the church really was about families, they would consider the diversity of what a family means.
Yeah.
So I just want to, we are at 2 hours, lovely human beings. I'm so grateful for this conversation. Thanks to everybody for your contributions. And I want to give Tim the last word. Tim, what would you like to leave the people with tonight?
Do your own research, study it out. I can only say, watch John DeLynn, watch Mormon Discussions, watch Mormon Stories. There's so much stuff coming out now about the church that it's going to be undeniable pretty soon where the Book of Mormon came from and where the Joseph Smith got his ideas. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to issue a further challenge. You mentioned John DeLynn. You mentioned Mormon Discussion. You mentioned
and our channel, your channel.
Yeah, I'm going to issue a challenge because here's what I have encountered: that the ex-Mormon space is just as dominated by men as the Mormon space.
Yes,
so I'm going to challenge you to go listen to a woman's voice and go listen to a woman's experience and go listen to the voice of someone you disagree with and see if you can't learn something from it.
Yeah, listen to Alessa Grenfell, Cults of Consciousness. And
well, Exmo Lex was the one that brought me into the
Exmo Lex.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, there was a post on Reddit the other day about Mormon men in the ex-Mormon space that was really devastating when I read it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of men who,
And
even though they're a member of the church, they're still very patriarchal.
yeah. And I'm not going to say I don't have anything against the men in the ex-Mormon space. I think their voices are valuable, and I think that they have a lot to contribute. I'm incredibly grateful to John Dehlin for his longevity and for his ability to unite a community that is really traumatized and divided. I just want to say that, as I've become more and more engaged in the ex-Mormon spaces, I've only been around here for a couple of years, but that's the thing I notice more than anything else is that ex-Mormon spaces are still really full of men who still have some patriarchal ideas. And so much to the fact that I was really shocked when about 6 months ago, an ex-Mormon man asked me about my experience. And I said, wow, nobody has ever asked me that before. So I just challenge you to go listen to a voice you've never listened to before and find a new perspective and forgive yourself for what you said and did when you didn't know better. And now that you know better, do better. Love you guys. Have a great night. Take care.